In a dramatic exchange during a congressional hearing, Chief Justice John Roberts stooped to questioning Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett's legal background in a tone that sounded less like a formal inquiry and more like a pointed jab. As she posed a complex constitutional question, Roberts interjected with a remark questioning the gravity of her courtroom experience. The moment had the unmistakable air of condescension masked as judicial curiosity, an attempt to unsettle and diminish her credentials. But Crockett didn't flinch. With a calm, unwavering voice, she responded not merely with rhetoric, but with measured clarity, dismantling the insinuation with facts and legal insight. She reminded the court that her record included substantial trial experience, immigration law work, and advocacy on civil rights issues, details Roberts seemed unconcerned about until now. In those precise seconds, she turned his barbed tone back on him, illuminating his attempt at mockery as a sign of insecurity, not authority. Her composure flipped the hearing's dynamic. Colleagues who had bristled at the interruption now listened intently. Viewers saw a rare moment when a high-ranking judicial figure sought to exude superiority, only to be undercut by someone he underestimated. Crockett's reply was not only to defend her own record, but to expose a broader implication, that questioning a black woman's qualifications based on tone or background echoes a long and painful history of undermining marginalized voices in law and leadership. She went further, reminding the court of her service as an assistant district attorney, her tenure in legal aid, and her advocacy for criminal justice reform. She emphasized that courtroom acumen isn't measured by judicial titles alone, but by dedication to justice and to the upliftment of underserved communities. Roberts, taken aback, searched for a retort but found none. His initial tone had backfired. Instead, the room fell silent in recognition of her firm but respectful authority. That silence spoke volumes. It echoed through social media after the hearing, where legal commentators praised Crockett's poise. One commentator wrote that she elegantly diffused condescension by being herself, and by knowing her record. The exchange underscored how tone policing often serves to silence or belittle, and how knowledge anchored in lived experience can redirect the narrative. In the end, Crockett didn't attack Roberts personally, nor did she retreat into defensiveness. She used her response to emphasize the importance of dignity, professionalism, and the recognition that justice demands respect for all backgrounds, from the highest court to the trial floor. She restored balance not by outshouting, but by refusing to be overshadowed. This moment stands as a testament. When power tries to replicate hierarchy through mockery, it risks revealing its own frailty. And when those who are underestimated answer with intelligence and integrity, they not only reclaim their narrative, they challenge the system to reflect on who really belongs at the table. As the congressional hearing unfolded, the atmosphere grew tense with every exchange. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, known for her sharp legal mind and fearless advocacy, was in the midst of questioning a witness on constitutional law when Chief Justice John Roberts, presiding with an air of detached superiority, made a comment that shifted the entire tone of the room. With a slight smirk and an unmistakable trace of condescension in his voice, he questioned the depth of her legal background, implying with thinly veiled sarcasm that perhaps she lacked the expertise to ask the complex questions she had been raising. The comment wasn't just a casual aside, it was a strategic slight, designed to undermine her in front of her peers and the cameras capturing the moment for the public eye. The room paused, as did the breath of many watching. It was the kind of moment where many in her position might falter, stumble, or shrink back under the weight of doubt being projected onto them, but that was not who Jasmine Crockett was. Without raising her voice, without allowing frustration to crack through her words, she leaned into the microphone and began to speak with the same focus and resolve that had carried her through law school, countless courtrooms, and years of legislative debate. She began by reciting her professional journey not as a defense, but as a statement of fact, an unshakable record that spoke for itself. She detailed her time serving as a public defender, where she represented clients who couldn't afford legal representation, often fighting for justice in cases where the odds were overwhelmingly stacked against them. She spoke of her work as an assistant district attorney, prosecuting cases and standing firm in the pursuit of justice from another side of the courtroom, gaining a unique and holistic understanding of the law that few could match. Crockett didn't stop there. She reminded the Chief Justice and everyone in the room that she had spent years fighting for civil rights, standing against voter suppression, and leading efforts on criminal justice reform. Her legal experience was not one born out of privilege or ease, but one forged in the relentless pursuit of justice for communities too often overlooked. As she laid out her qualifications, her tone remained calm, but the power in her words was undeniable. There was no need for anger. The truth did the heavy lifting. She drew a clear line between the traditional paths that judges like Roberts often walked, and the less celebrated but equally critical paths walked by attorneys like her, who serve on the front lines of justice every day. She pointed out that courtroom experience doesn't only come from sitting behind the bench, but from standing before it, arguing cases, protecting rights, and fighting for people whose voices might otherwise go unheard. She highlighted how real-world experience in the trenches of the justice system offers insights that academic theory and appellate courtrooms sometimes miss. Crockett went on to note the systemic barriers that people of color, especially black women, face within the legal profession, reminding the room that dismissing someone's background based on superficial judgments only perpetuates those barriers. She spoke about how throughout her career she had been forced more than once to prove her worth to people who judged her before hearing her out, and how each time she let her work speak louder than any bias or prejudice she faced. The hearing room, which had been buzzing just moments before, now sat in stunned silence. Even those who had previously appeared indifferent now leaned in, visibly affected by the gravity and grace with which she handled the situation. Some exchanged glances, as though recognizing that they were witnessing something significant, a turning point in the conversation about bias, authority, and what qualifies as expertise in the eyes of the law. Chief Justice Roberts, for his part, seemed momentarily disarmed. The expression on his face shifted from smug confidence to something closer to reflective discomfort. The quick jab he had made in hopes of putting her off balance had instead revealed more about him than it did about her. He had underestimated her, and now the entire room knew it. Crockett concluded by pivoting the discussion back to the matter at hand, the constitutional issues she had been addressing before the interruption. It was a subtle but powerful move, reclaiming the narrative and signaling that she wouldn't allow anyone's misplaced doubt to derail the important work being done. The hearing continued, but the energy in the room had shifted permanently. Social media lit up almost instantly. Clips of the exchange circulated widely, with commentators praising Crockett for her grace under pressure, her articulate dismantling of bias, and her ability to turn a moment of disrespect into a teachable one. Legal scholars weighed in, calling the incident a masterclass in handling professional adversity. People from marginalized communities shared the video alongside their own stories of being doubted or talked down to in professional settings. For many, Crockett's response became a symbol of what it looks like to hold space with dignity and refuse to let others define your worth. In the days that followed, conversations about systemic bias in the legal system gained new traction. Commentators pointed out that Roberts' comment wasn't just about one individual. It reflected an entrenched culture of elitism and exclusion that had long plagued the legal world. Crockett's ability to rise above the moment without letting it pass unchallenged set a new standard for how to confront such issues head-on. She didn't merely defend herself, she challenged the system and did it in real time on a national stage. By the end of the week, the incident became a case study in several law schools across the country, where professors used it to spark discussions on professionalism, bias, and the evolving face of leadership within the American legal system. Jasmine Crockett had walked into that hearing as a representative of her constituents, but she walked out having reminded the nation that experience, grit, and a commitment to justice hold more weight than titles or preconceived notions ever will.